It happens from time to time that we are shaken to our core, and we quickly realize what is important in life, really important. House fires, death of a loved one, the pandemic, the effects of war and violence and hostility all around us do it to us. And for a short while, our awareness is heightened to realize that life must be treasured at all times, and that each day is special, and we no longer can take granted family members, friendships, or the gift of life itself. My dear friends, Advent is a place at time when there's a great battle going on between darkness and light. The darkness overtakes the light, and we have much less daylight in these days, and a lot more of night. Many of you wake up and you head out to work or to school in the darkness of the early morning, and you come back at night when there's darkness too. And so we have these image of darkness and light, and they're powerful images for us. It's during this Advent season that we're made acutely aware of the darkness that surrounds us. And together, we await the coming of the light. The darkness can be the darkness of night, but it also can be the darkness of sin and death. It can be the darkness of all of our ills that threaten us, to overwhelm us. It could be the lack of work, or not enough money to get the basic needs. It could be the lack of friendship, or failed relationships, or the sufferings of ill health, or the death of a child before or after birth, remembered for years and years to come. Yes, Advent is a time. It's a time for us to recognize the darkness that threatens to overwhelm us. But my dear friends, it's also a time to become aware that we need someone to come and someone to save us, to intervene on our behalf, and to tear open the heavens and to come down. And that's what we heard in our first reading today. Advent is our time to pray that Jesus Christ will strengthen us in our darkness and keep our heads above the waters. And it's precisely in the midst of darkness that we are enjoined to keep awake, to keep our focus, and to keep our eyes on the one who saves us. Dom Helder Cameron was a bishop in Brazil. And years ago, he wrote a beautiful poem. It was about the darkness that he experienced in the poor and the desolate in his diocese. And he called it Midnight Lord. It's in this poem that he outlines the sufferings of death that surround him and his people. And over again in the poem, he repeats, "It's midnight, Lord." And where does he find hope? It's midnight, he says. And midnight is pregnant with dawn. My dear friends, this is what the whole Advent season is about. It's our time of waiting in joyful hope and active waiting. It's a time for us to prepare for the coming of God and to be awake and aware that God is breaking into our world. So we have to look around. And you and I have to find it. We see it in parents who love their children and care for them and want the best for them. We see it this time in teachers and catechists going out of their way, especially at this time, so that our children may experience goodness and love. We see it next door with doctors and nurses that go overboard to attend to the elderly and the sick. We see it with our neighbors, reaching out in generosity and respect to one another. My dear friends, this is how we gain hope, by looking around and recognizing that in the midst of darkness, that God is still at work in our lives, in our homes, in our community, and in our world. That God is at work through the very people who believe and come to know him and continue to do his work. And we remain awake and aware that we will experience that source of good that we witness in the world around us. And so this season is a time for us to be awake, to keep our eyes on the goodness that is in the world. During this Advent season, something wonderful happens in nature. That light slowly begins to overtake the darkness. In a few days, in a few weeks, we will celebrate the coming of Jesus Christ as the light of the world into our lives once again. And so this Advent season is a time of patiently waiting. Our world is pushing us to have it over already. But it's waiting, looking, seeing, that we prepare for the light. That light of darkness will no longer overcome us. And we are blessed because our God loves us by giving us his Son.